Picture this. It's the evening of November 10th, 2025. Peak rush hour in Delhi. Out of nowhere, a massive explosion just rips through a busy intersection. Now, this wasn't just another tragedy. It was the first violent sign of a new and, frankly, terrifying kind of threat. The first reports from the scene were just pure chaos. One eyewitness said it felt like an earthquake, a scene of absolute devastation. And right away, everyone knew this was no accident. Okay, so once the initial shock starts to wear off, investigators begin to put together the basic facts. A Hyundai i20, a busy traffic light right near a famous landmark, and a horrific human toll. These were the very first pieces of a puzzle that was about to get a lot more complex. And this is where the story pivots. It stops being just an incident and becomes a full-blown anti-terror investigation. The race was on to follow every single lead, connect the dots, and figure out just how big this threat really was. The response, it was swift and it was serious. The National Investigation Agency, the NIA, immediately took charge. A high alert went up not just in Delhi, but in other major cities too. You see, this wasn't being treated like just a crime. It was being treated like an attack on the city itself. And here's a crucial detail. The authorities invoked the UAPA. Now, this is India's main anti-terror law, and bringing it into play sends a very clear signal. They knew they weren't just investigating a simple bombing, they were hunting for a premeditated terrorist plot. You know, every investigation needs that one thread you can start pulling on, and in this case, it was the car, a white Hyundai i20. The questions were pretty straightforward, but so important. Who was behind the wheel, and where did this car come from? The answers would lead to a discovery that was truly shocking. So, how do you even begin to make sense of an attack like this? Well, you look to the past. Unfortunately, Delhi has a painful history with terrorism. The big question for investigators was, does this new attack fit any of the old familiar patterns? When you look back, you see this tragic pattern emerge. The coordinated serial blasts back in 2008, the briefcase bomb at the High Court in 2011, and now, this car bomb in 2025. Each attack was different, yeah, but they all shared the same brutal, heartbreaking goal: to cause as much harm as possible to civilians. And then, boom, the first major clue: the explosive material itself, ammonium nitrate. The suspicion that it was used here was a chilling echo, a direct link back to those 2008 blasts. It pointed to a terrifyingly familiar playbook: target innocent people where they feel safest. And this right here is an official document from the 2011 High Court bombing. It's a stark, cold reminder of the deadly history we're talking about. These aren't just numbers, they're lives, and it just underscores the gravity of what the city was up against. Again. And then came the breakthrough, the kind of lead that changes everything. The investigation took a huge turn when the Red Fort bombing was connected not to some small, isolated plot, but to a massive terror network operating right on the edge of the city, in Faridabad. The raid uncovered a staggering amount of explosives, nearly 3,000 kilograms of ammonium nitrate and related chemicals. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that. This wasn't a stash for one car bomb. This was enough for a whole series of attacks. The blast at the Red Fort, it turns out, was just the tip of a catastrophic iceberg. And it gets worse. Alongside all that material, they found 20 electronic timers. Think about what that means. The plan was never for just one explosion. It was for a coordinated series of attacks, kind of like the 2008 blasts, but maybe on an even bigger, more devastating scale. The Faridabad raid turned up way more than just bomb-making stuff. It was a full-on arsenal. We're talking guns, ammo, detonators, even suitcases packed and ready to be turned into bombs. The crucial point here is absolutely massive. Authorities didn't just solve one attack. They stopped an entire campaign of terror before it could happen. But you know, the most disturbing discovery of all wasn't the weapons. It was the people behind them. The investigation peeled back the layers on a sophisticated, new kind of extremism, something experts are now calling white-collar terror. So, what in the world is a white-collar terror module? Well, think about it. It's a network that uses educated professionals, people you'd never ever suspect. Their respectable jobs and backgrounds give them the perfect cover to rent houses, buy chemicals, and move money around, all without raising a single red flag. They can literally hide in plain sight. And the list of suspects just drives this point home in the most terrifying way. We have Dr. Umar Mohammed, the man they believe was driving the car bomb, Dr. Mujamal Shakil, who rented the house where the arsenal was stored, and Dr. Adil Rather, another medical professional connected to the group. These weren't just random recruits, they were doctors. Okay, so we have the weapons, we have the suspects. How do investigators put it all together into a coherent story? Well, here is their current working theory.
Thanks to CCTV footage, investigators were able to reconstruct the car's final hours. It comes into Delhi, parks for almost 3 hours, and get this, the driver never gets out. Then it pulls into rush hour traffic. Just 22 minutes later, at a red light, it explodes. He was just sitting there, waiting. But for what? Or for who?
And the car itself, well, its paper trail was a mess, and that was completely on purpose. It was sold from a man in Gurugram to another in Pulwama, and then transferred again. This complicated chain was designed to do one thing: confuse the investigation and hide the identity of the person who would end up behind the wheel. All of this leads investigators to one pretty chilling conclusion. The massive, coordinated terror campaign was stopped dead in its tracks by that raid in Faridabad. With his network collapsing and his partners getting arrested, the driver, Dr. Umar Mohammed, likely panicked. The bombing wasn't the grand opening of an attack. It was the desperate, final act of a plot that had already failed.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what this incident shows us is a chilling evolution in how terrorism works. By recruiting educated professionals, these networks gain a kind of legitimacy, a cover that lets them embed themselves deep inside the very cities they plan to attack. Which leaves all of us with a final, unsettling question. As terror changes, as it learns to blend into the very fabric of our cities, how do we have to change? When the threat might not be a stranger from far away, but a professional living right down the street, how must our own vigilance evolve to meet it?